So the easiest is your evaluations. So most startups don't have any kind of formal evaluation system because that stuff takes time and you need somebody to manage that. However, we have this idea that somebody can only lead 3 to 5 people effectively. And that is true generally. However, if you're a good leader and you could spend your entire time simply doing the process of leading these people, you could lead 20 people to do things, but you're not going to do anything else except lead those people. That makes sense. And a way that you do that is, what is your evaluation system? And having an evaluation system that focuses on metrics, and you can call them KPIs or whatever you want to give it, right? The end state. But when you have a system that has very, very clear metrics and you have a way to ensure that we're going to talk about those things and that the people have enough resources to do those things, then you let them go and do stuff, right? Then you don't actually have to do much except take their reports, right? You could do that for a lot of people. So having an evaluation system where you sit down with somebody at the beginning of the quarter, you pick out the 4 most important things that they need to work on that you want them to do. You make sure that they're also in agreement with what those standards are. What does success actually look like? Because that way, at the end of the at the end of the period, there's actually no arguing. If you have a very, very clear standard that says that, you know, you need to do this many sales. Sales are easy because you can always put a number to them. But people like in HR, they say, oh, it's fuzzy. You can't do that. You can always find a metric. You got to work hard sometimes. But you can always find a metric. You find that hard metric so that at the end of that quarter, the end of the year, whatever, like somebody from outside your organization could come in and they could sit down and look at what that person did, use that metric and decide whether or not they were successful or not. Then you don't have this arguing back and forth like, well, no, I did this, but what I really meant was this. Very, 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 very clear standards. And then making sure that that person understands, how that fits in terms of your priorities. And then again, it falls on you, right? How often are we going to talk about this? We had talked about this weekly. Is this a daily report? Is this once a month, right? And then you give them everything they need to include the guidance on where their left and right limits are. Oftentimes it's like, okay, if it costs less than $5,000, okay, then you can make the decision. If it's over 5,000, then you bring it to me, kind of thing. If it affects these people, then it comes to me. Other than that, you make the decision. So you give them very, very clear lanes. And when you spend the time crafting something like that as it's part of a system, then all of a sudden leadership becomes super easy because people are now leading themselves. That's what you want to get to, right? I call it endogenous leadership. People lead themselves when you've set up a system like this where it allows them to be successful and that they also have a say in it. What I call them is cooperative performance agreements or CPAs. And you let them be involved in this. And normally if say there's going to be 4 things that we're going to talk about for the quarter or for the year, however you want to break it up, I normally ask them, like, what's something you've been wanting to work on for a while and you haven't had time to, because I'm going to now this is going to be part of the thing that you're going to do, because they'll get excited about that. Now, it might not get as high a priority. And the way that I do that, let's say I've got 4 priorities for the quarter or the year, whatever it is, right? I'll put down, okay, this for me is 30%. This is 20%. This is 10. So it might be a 10% for me, but for them, it's going to be important. But it still becomes part of their evaluation. And that way they're going to want to get it done because it's something they've been wanting to do for a long time anyways. Maybe it's somebody wants to rewrite this particular SOP because it's a constant pain in the butt. That's a great kind of not urgent, but important thing that we're going to let them do that. And that's going to be part of their evaluation. But see, we've built a system now where people are going to lead themselves. And we're not going to have any kind of arguments when it comes to evaluation time because the metrics are so clear that they know ahead of time if they've met it or not. We know what our evaluation is going to be like before we have the meeting. But the system then includes that, okay, if we're going to look at these things quarterly, we're going to sit down and we're going to look at it quarterly. We're going to talk about what it is. We're going to, do the next quarter now. And at the end of the year, we're going to look at all of them. And people love that because it's clarity. People who are really good at their jobs hate ambiguity because they want to know what success means because then they can rise to meet it. But if they don't know what success means, then that's when they start slacking off because it's like, it doesn't matter anyways. I do this and it just doesn't matter. Or I do this and then they say that, that's not what they wanted. And then you just see them like they kind of put their hands up. But again, it's that whole communication piece. When you find out what it is that they want to do, then you align that and you can do that through this system in terms of what I call it like a CPA, or it can be any kind of system for those evaluations. But now what you have done is you've aligned everybody with the organization's goals or your goals. And then you can like just set them free. So that's one system that you have there. You have training systems. If what you want to do is to be able to grow your company from a startup into a mid-sized business, and we've identified the fact that none of your people really have any leadership training, well, what's the training plan? Is there a system for training? What types of training should they get, and when should people get things? What should be expected of them that they're going to be able to know when they get out of this particular training program? Because there's lots of training programs. So what is it that we need to have? And just the fact, just that exercise where you sit down and you are very intentional about a thing, whether it's the training program or whether it's going to be how people get promoted within the company. Just that exercise itself helps you out because it gives you clarity. It gives you like a plan. You can even put that down on paper at this point and say, for promotions, think somebody should probably be in their job for 3 years and show proficiency in their basic job. And then they should take a leadership course and they should, maybe there's a test involved or whatever. And then they need to spend a couple of months working, with another leader. And that's on top of their regular job. They're going to also be getting some leadership training. That in and of itself, just that little bit right there, you've now put in a system. And if you then publish that to everybody, then everybody knows what it is that they got to do. So the people who then want to become leaders, who want to get into the system, they've got a very clear path that they have to follow. And people rise to that. People want to like what they do. They want to go into work and enjoy what they're doing. They want to be motivated because our work is it's at least a third of our life. And you want to be able to enjoy that and get motivated to do that. So when you find ways to do that and you make things very, very clear and you put these systems in place and you make it very clear to people, then things, that's how you scale. That's how you get things to take off. Just doing those kind of simple systems like that.